When I first started playing Heart Gold, I was really worried that the TMs available in the game corner would break the game for the solo challenge format. Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam are really broken to get before the third gym leader. And those aren't even the worst offenders, because you can access Swords Dance, which I think is the second best move in this format. It only falls short of Nasty Plot just because Confusion does give the enemy some play around it. However, what I have found is that this game is really hard, even when Pokemon gets Swords Dance. And so we're gonna do a case study today on an example of when that's true. Today, I play Pokemon Heart Gold using the Tangrowth-line. For base stats, Tangela starts with 65 HP, 55 attack, 115 defense, 60 speed. This stat goes down when it evolves, by the way, so it gets slower, which is really frustrating. It has an outrageous 100 special attack, but only 40 special defense. I'm gonna talk about that more later. I had a choice between two abilities, Chlorophyll or Leaf Guard. I decided to go for the former because the latter only blocks non-volatile status conditions during harsh sunlight. That doesn't seem as good as improving my speed, especially when Tangrowth is slower than Tangela. I will need to make up for its speed deficit later into the run, at least that's my theory right now. But I have bigger problems in the early game. Tangela starts with Ingrain, Constrict, and Sleep Powder. So I have to deal damage with Constrict. Now, luckily for me, I can use Ingrain to gain back hit points during these initial battles and still knock out wild Pokemon using Constrict. This does feel a lot better than Lickitung, which I played last in this series. However, this is still a really slow start, and these two Pokemon actually feel very similar to each other. They have really rough early games, and then once they get to Goldenrod City, they both access Swords Dance, and they get a lot better. Plus, they both evolve at level 33 once they get access to a rock move. For Lickitung it's Rollout, but for Tangela it's Ancient Power. This actually made me wonder if this is another pairing of Pokemon that has flown under the radar for almost a third of a century. I'm thinking like Mantine and Skarmory. A lot of people don't realize that those two are actually a pair introduced in Generation 2. Both Tangela and Lickitung were introduced in Generation 1, and they do evolve through obtaining a move at level 33 in Generation 4. Thing is, they have different base stat totals, so they aren't really a pair, but they do play very similarly in these games. One thing that's different between them is that with Lickitung, I had to go up against the rival when he was facing Bayleaf. That is my default choice when my Pokemon takes neutral damage from all of the starters. In this case though, it's obvious that I should be facing Cyndaquil, which has fire type damage. In the first battle, it doesn't have super effective damage. I can just use Ingrain and Constrict to slowly knock it out. All of these battles take a really long time. On my way back to Professor Elm's lab, I bump into this Hoot. It's level 4, which means it's going to give pretty good experience for a wild Johto Pokemon. I knock it out, Tangela levels up to 8, and now it has access to Absorb. So I can leverage my much higher special attack stat, and while Absorb only does have base 20 power, after the same type attack bonus it has 30 effective power, which is way better than Constrict's 10. On my way to Violet City, I was preparing as much as possible by fighting every wild Pokemon, but as I started to fight trainers, I realized there might be a problem in taking this approach. The Bellsprout inside of Sprout Tower, which is a mandatory section of the game in Heart Gold, will take 1/4 damage from Absorb, so its effective power is going to be around 7, whereas Constrict has an effective power of 10, so that normal type move will be the best move against all of those grass types. However, Falkner is coming up just after that, and for his battle, I think I want to have access to Growth to boost the power of Absorb. But I would also like to keep Ingrain for passive healing, as well as Sleep Powder around so that I can put his flying types to sleep. If this is my plan, then I'm going to have to give up Constrict in order to learn Growth. So I stop battling optional trainers and head into Sprout Tower at level 8 so that I can use Constrict here. It takes a really long time. It's honestly pretty frustrating. As soon as I started battling these trainers, I regretted skipping the trainers earlier into the game because I could have just got Growth and then set up and used Absorb here instead of using Constrict. I don't think that would be significantly slower, and I would be at least at a higher level. Still, Tangela can make it through this entire section of the game. It's just such a slog. At the very end of Sprout Tower, I go up against Elder Lee, and this was a sketchy fight because the Hoot uses Hypnosis on Tangela, and then with Peck, it can do decent damage. Luckily for me, sleep isn't nearly as good as it was in Generation 1, so Tangela's able to wake up, and then the Hoot doesn't go for Hypnosis again, which is really good for me. I finish off his ace Pokemon and then clean up the final Bellsprout. Alright, time for Falkner's gym. In here, I'm going to fight both of the trainers, just so that I can get to level 13 over over the next damage rounding threshold. I was a little bit worried about Birdkeeper Abe, but he seems incompetent in Heart Gold, especially compared to his incarnation in Generation 2 where he just spams Peck. Here he's using Fury attack a lot, and it's just not doing enough damage. So Absorb is enough for me to conquer him, move on through Birdkeeper Rod, and then take on Falkner. My plan here is pretty simple. Put the Pidgey to sleep, then it's not going to use Sand Attack too many times. I can hopefully set up a bunch of growths and move on to the Pidgeotto. I'm most scared against it because it has Gust, which, while its special attack is not very impressive, it's fairly close to its physical attack, at least at this level, and my special defense is really not very good, so I think Gust will be doing good damage. The issue is that Sleep Powder missed right away, and then the Pidgey started to use Sand Attack, and it lowers Tangela's accuracy by 4 stages before I knock out Falkner's first Pokemon. I was able to get to +3, but unfortunately the Pidgeotto is doing a lot with Gust, and my Absorbs are just not hitting because of the Sand attacks. So I took my first reset here, but I don't need to alter my strategy. This will be enough for Falkner, at least eventually. Training in the wild, or on some of the trainers that I skipped prior to Violet City, is just not going to be as efficient as trying to grind my way through this fight. I also learned something in the previous battle, which is I should be putting the Pidgeotto to sleep because of how much damage Gust does. Even if it misses 1 or 2 turns over what it would have got without sleep, it will be an advantage for Tangela, especially when I'm healing small amounts of health with Absorb on every turn. This time around, sleep works out for me. The Pidgey only goes for a single Sand attack, and then I get a critical hit with Absorb, knocking it out in 1 turn. This heals Tangela to full health before the Pidgeotto comes in. Sleep Powder misses, Gust does about a third, but then I put his ace to sleep. After that, Absorb is healing me, and by the time it wakes up, I'm near full health. Now, it can use Roost. If it does this, its flying type is taken away, which is not reflected on my overlay. But this will mean that Absorb does neutral damage to the Pidgeotto, increasing the amount that I can do to it in retaliation, but also increasing the amount that Tangela heals. Once I get the battle to this state, I think the chances of Tangela losing are quite low. The scenarios I can dream up right now on the spot that would be sketchy for Tangela are if Sleep Powder misses a couple times in a row, or if Pidgeotto gets a critical hit with Gust. Those scenarios don't play out in this case, so that's Falkner, he's done. But coming up is Bugsy, so things haven't got better for Tangela just yet. West of the city, I grabbed the Hardstone as well as the Rock Smash TM. Luckily, unlike Lickitung, I'm not going to have to teach Tangela this HM today. South of the city, I get given the Miracle Seed, which improves the damage of Grass-type moves by 20%. This is immediately useful, boosting the effective power of Absorb up from 30 to 36. Before I reach Azalea Town, I'm going to battle every single optional trainer that is available to me with the exception of the Magikarp guy. I want to gain as much experience as I can before I make it to Bugsy, because I assume that he is going to wall me. Let's go through Tangela's level up moves so you can see how hopeless this upcoming battle is going to be. At level 15, Poison Powder, 19 Vine Whip, 22 Bind, 26 Mega Drain, 29 Stun Spore, and then 33 Ancient Power, which would definitely help me crush the bugs. But I assume Absorb and Growth together, or Mega Drain and Growth, will have given me a win before I reach level 33. Beyond that, Tangela gets Knock Off, Natural Gift, Slam, Tickle, Ring Out, and Power Whip. This is why I find it very similar to Licky Licky, because its level up move pool also ends with Ring Out and Power Whip. I have to say, I was expecting Tangela to get access to Rock Tomb, which is a TM available just inside of Union Cave, but it doesn't. It gets access to Bullet Seed, however, I'm going to skip over this TM entirely on Route 32 because it's physical and its base power is only 10 in Generation 4. This was increased to 25 starting in Generation 5, but even then, I think the combo of Growth and Absorb together are still going to be better against Bugsy, because there's no way to get access to Swords Dance to boost the power of physical moves prior to fighting him. Well, unless in these challenges you allowed yourself to trade your Tangela to a different game, give it Swords Dance there with a TM, and then send it back. But I don't allow myself to do this. For coverage, Tangela gets access to Shockwave, Sludge Bomb, I guess Thief, as well as Rock Smash. It's really not a very diverse move pool. And there's some strong anti-synergy here. The fact that its best move is Swords Dance means all of the special coverage it gets is essentially just going to be useless. I don't foresee myself using either Shockwave or Sludge Bomb during this playthrough. I'm most mostly going to be running a physical set so that I can utilize Swords Dance to its highest potential. One move that Tangela does get access to that I should talk about is Cut. I could fight the rival in Azalea Town, grab this HM, and then use it against Bugsy for physical neutral damage. But I don't want to do that, because as we saw with Lickitung, then we need to keep around the HM move until we reach Blackthorn City, and in Heart Gold that means I have to defeat all of the rockets inside of Radio Tower. Cut will be deadweight on my moveset for so long, so I'm gonna try to make it by Bugsy with the strategy I mentioned before, using Absorb. This is going to be painful. Before I get to him, I pick up the Poison Barb, just in case Sludge Bomb is going to be useful. Spoiler alert, it is not going to be useful. Then I make my way through Union Cave, fighting all of the trainers here for experience. There are some mild holdups, like when this coughing poisons my Tangela and I have to backtrack to heal the status condition before I make progress. But in the end, this area of the game is very straightforward, and so are all the rockets in Slowpoke Well. I just have to take my time, set up with growth, and then use Absorb for decent damage. Inside the gym, after fighting Bugcatcher Benny, my Tangela is level 19. This is not over a damage rounding threshold, and I don't think it's going to be enough for Bugsy, but let's try our luck. After all, Sleep Powder is one of my favorite moves in Generation 1 for a reason. It can make miracles happen. Although the likelihood for that to happen after Generation 1 is much lower, but I still want to try this just to see how it's gonna go. Bugsy leads with Scyther. It has U-turn, but it likes to set up with Focus Energy and Leer initially, giving Tangela time to put it to sleep. From there, I'm going to use Growth, getting all the way to +6, and then use Absorb for a quarter damage against the Scyther to knock it out fairly slowly. It's probably still going to be a 3 or 4 hit. The issue here is that Sleep is just not going to last long enough. It wears off, the Scyther was able to lower my defense by 1 stage, and after it U-turns, which does more than half, I was left feeling pretty hopeless. I can continue my setup against the Kakuna, which is kind of ideal. However, when the Scyther comes back in, it is faster than Tangela, and it should be able to knock me out in 1 hit, unless I can heal enough by knocking the Kakuna out using Absorb. And I do get all the way back to green health, plus a level up, giving me the damage rounding threshold and a little bit more HP. I am able to survive 1 more U-turn, but this sends in Metapod next, and I'm not able to heal enough health here, so when the Scyther comes out one last time, it finishes off Tangela. This battle taught me something. If my defense gets dropped by Leer, I'm going to lose. This gets confirmed in the second battle where it drops my defense by 3 stages, then uses U-turn, gets a critical hit, and one-shots Tangela. So I think I can reset quite quickly here if my Sleep Powder is missing on the Scyther, or if I have my defense dropped by Leer. So it appears what I'm hoping for here is a Focus Energy on turn 1, and then if Scyther wakes up, that it goes for U-turn and switches out, allowing me to finish my growth setups with my defense intact. Then I can knock out both the Kakuna and the Metapod, gaining back health, while the Scyther is just barely not able to knock me out using its U-turns. There is still an issue though, because I'm going to need to put the Scyther to sleep. There is no way that I knock it out in 1 hit using Absorb, so if Sleep Powder misses when the Scyther switches back in, then there's the potential for me to just lose. And if it wakes up before I knock it out, then it's going to go for another U-turn, and that'll probably be the end of Tangela as well. As you can see here, Sleep Powder misses, so Scyther gets its 3rd victory over Tangela. I tried over and over and over, and this fight is just not working out. I'm pretty sure Tangela is just going to need to level up more to make the math better. I fight Bugcatcher Josh inside of the gym. He has a single Paris. This ends up being a brutal battle for Tangela. I can't believe I'm saying that. The Paris paralyzes me. I have given up Ingrain to have Vine Whip on my set. I don't know why I did that. It's a terrible choice. Ingrain would be far better in this place of the game. After all, I could gain back a small amount of health on every turn against Bugsy, which would really help me out against the Kakuna and the Metapod especially. In this case, against the Paris, there's another complicating issue, which is the fact that it knows Leech Life, which is super effective and gains the Paris back health every turn. I have to put it to sleep and then knock it out with Absorb after setting up Growth, but it's also hard to sneak in growths when I'm paralyzed and Sleep Powder's not that consistent. I genuinely thought for a while that I might have to reset here, but Tangela was able to pull out a victory. Okay, what about the rival? Maybe I can beat him next. I can put the Ghastly to sleep because I am faster than it. After that, I can set up Growth, and from there, the remainder of the battle should be easier. The issue is that I don't knock out the Ghastly in 1 hit after it wakes up from Sleep Powder. I pushed things instead of trying to go for Sleep Powder again, and this ended up being a terrible choice because the Ghost goes for Curse, then Zubat comes in, it confuses confuses Tangela, and everything spirals out of control. The solution for this fight is actually fairly simple. Just put the Ghastly to sleep, knock it out as soon as possible, then put the Zubat to sleep and set up here because it's a far less scary Pokemon. All of its moves in Generation 4 are physical, so I don't have to worry about my low special defense until the Quilava, and that gives me time to set up with Growth. Now, unlike the Bayleaf, which is speed tied with the Ghastly, the Quilava is faster. It has 34 speed, but with Tangela's base 60 speed, it is faster by 3 points, so I am going to move first against the Fire type. My gamble here was to go for Sleep Powder right away. I hit myself in confusion, and then Quilava just goes for Leer, which is not that scary. I put it to sleep, and from there I can use Absorb, which knocks it out over 3 turns. It just barely survived, but it continues snoozing and I'm faster, so that's that. I earned the experience from the rival fight, but it didn't even get Tangela to level 21. So if I want to level more, I'm gonna have to fight wild Pokemon, and I chose to do that to get up to level 21 before heading back to Bugsy. Trying this again cements to me that it's just not gonna happen for Tangela at this level, but let's examine speed stats. The Scyther, which is by far the fastest Pokemon on his team, has 42 speed. Tangela right now has 39, so if I level up 2 to 3 more times, I should be able to move first consistently against the Scyther, which is going to dramatically change my chance to win here. With 45 minutes on the clock, I head back to Union Cave to fight wild Pokemon. This is really slow and really annoying. Luckily for me, the Geodude, the Sandshrew, the Onix, and the Rattata that show up here are very fast to knock out. The only Pokemon that takes time to knock out is Zubat, but it makes sense to knock these out because they give speed EVs. I was really hoping that everything would synergize, and by the time I reached level 23, I would have exactly 43 speed. Unfortunately, Tangela only has 42 at level 23, so I have to level up one more time to level 24 to get to 43. This training took a total of 10 minutes. The clock is at 55 minutes when I start fighting Bugsy again. Even with the outspeed, this fight is still sketchy. There's one problem I haven't mentioned yet, and that is the Kakuna can poison me with Poison Sting. If this happens, the fight is also a loss. Eventually though, Sleep Powder is able to do what it needs to do, and then I set up with Growth against the Scyther all the way to +6 while it snoozes. So how much damage is Absorb going to do? And the answer is pathetic damage, roughly 1/5 when Tangela's special attack stat is 240. Then something strange happens. When Scyther wakes up, instead of attacking with U-turn, it just goes for Quick Attack, which doesn't do much. I put it back to sleep and then finish it using Absorb, or at least that's what I was hoping to do. He switches out to the Kakuna instead of using U-turn, so Scyther is still asleep, which is great. When it comes back in, I'll just knock it out because I'm faster. I take care of the Kakuna, Scyther comes back out, Absorb finishes it, Metapod comes in next, and Absorb finishes it in a single turn. It took me almost 1 hour of time to beat the first 2 gym leaders in the game. I am so excited for the upcoming upgrades. Inside the forest, I teach Tangela Headbutt in the place of Absorb. Then I go to Voltorb Flip and earn myself a bunch of coins so that I can purchase the TM for Swords Dance. I teach it in the place of Growth, and then I take on Whitney. For once, Tangela has an easy gym battle. I can put the Clefairy to sleep just so it doesn't metronome anything that's going to cause significant problems. Then I set up with Swords Dance to +6 and one-shot with Headbutt. Miltank is next. I'm faster than it by a single speed point, which is just perfect. I go for Headbutt, bringing it down to red health. It uses Stomp, but it can't flinch me, and so Tangela gets a simple and fast win against the 3rd gym leader. This is only just starting to make up for the awfulness that was the early game. Immediately following Whitney, I make a trip back to the department store to pick up the TM for Return. This is going to be my go-to move throughout the majority of the playthrough because the physical moves that Tangela and Tangrowth get access to are not very good. I could get a better special move here and teach Solar Beam, but I don't think that's a good choice. It's just not very good till I get access to Sunny Day, which comes after the Rocket plotline. And I don't want to teach the weather move too early into the playthrough because I think I'm going to need it for the late game. Hang on to that thought for later. North of the city, I have the chance to learn Mega Drain, but this doesn't make any sense. Vine Whip is a physical grass type move. The reason I taught it earlier on was so that I would have it in order to counter out the ghost type Pokemon that are coming up in Ecruteak City, since Headbutt or Return will be ineffective against them. Inside the national park, I pick up the Quick Claw for later on. I take care of Sudowoodo and then head into Ecruteak City. In this section of the game, I need to strategize when I want to evolve into Tangrowth. Evolving will improve all of my stats with the exception of my speed, and that could be a disadvantage against Morty. Plus, I am going to have to teach Ancient Power in order to evolve, which means giving up either Vine Whip or Headbutt. I think the normal type move is the one to drop, just because I'm going to have Return as a replacement later on, and Headbutt doesn't really help in this section of the game other than fighting random trainers for experience. I think a level 32 Tangela might have a chance of outspeeding all of Morty's Pokemon, maybe with the exception of Gengar. If I evolve into Tangrowth, I might lose enough speed that I don't outspeed the Haunters, putting me at higher risk. So maybe I can fight Morty at exactly level 32 and then level up to 33 during the fight. This gives me another key advantage. If I do things this way, then I can teach Substitute in the place of Headbutt to block Curse. I went to the Lighthouse first to do some additional training. This gets Tangela to level 30, and then I head back to fight the rival in Burned Tower. Substitute blocks the Ghastly's Curse as well as Confuse Ray. Because of this, I can set up with Impunity, with Swords Dance, and then use Vine Whip to sweep his team, even though it is not very effective against every single one of them. I was really worried about the experience from all of the mediums inside of the gym. Is this going to level me up to 33? If it does, I will have to teach Ancient Power and evolve into Tangrowth. The only way to get this move back later into the playthrough is with the move reminder, and he's in Blackthorn City, which comes after the 7th gym leader. And I don't want to complete the next stretch of the game as a Tangela. My plan works out perfectly though, because by the time I face the last medium, Tangela is exactly level 32, which is perfect. So now let's face Morty. Tangela outspeeds the Ghastly and both Haunter. I am slower than the Gengar, but this doesn't matter because I can set up Substitute on turn 1. That blocks pretty much everything the Ghastly can throw at me. Then I use Swords Dance, set up fully, and use Vine Whip to knock it out. I was expecting this to take 2 turns, but Vine Whip actually pulls off the one-shot on his initial Pokemon. He sends in Gengar next. This doesn't really matter. While it does break my Substitute with Shadow Ball, I'm able to 2-shot it using Vine Whip, and that's that for the fight. Vine Whip one-hits both of the following Haunters, and the experience from them perfectly levels Tangela up to 33. I teach Ancient Power in the place of Substitute, and then Tangela evolves into Tangrowth. For base stats, it has 100 HP and attack, 125 defense, 110 special attack, and only 50 speed and special defense. The thing that I want to note here is the delta between the special attack and attack. With Tangela, this is significant. Its special attack is 100 and its physical attack is 55. But Tangrowth gets a massive plus 45 to its physical attack, meaning it's only 10 points behind its special attack. And this is the reason I think that Swords Dance makes so much more sense when running this line. Also, Growth gets so much better in Generation 5. It raises both physical attack and special attack, and if the sun is set up, it raises both of these stats by 2 stages. I cannot wait to use Growth in Generation 5. It is gonna be busted. Okay, something you might have noticed is that Tangela's move pool was much smaller than Tangrowth's, and I want to draw your attention to one really big frustration here. Tangrowth can learn Rock Tomb, so if we started fully evolved or somehow leveled to 33 before Bugsy, we would have had a much easier time against him. We can also now learn a bunch of other physical moves: Earthquake, Brick Break, Aerial Ace, Rock Slide, and Poison Jab. The issue with this coverage is that most of these moves are not available for a long time. Earthquake comes in Victory Road. Brick Break is a Battle Frontier exclusive. Rock Tomb I already skipped over, and it's just kind of a trash move. Aerial Ace is in the Battle Frontier or in Mount Mortar, but I don't really want to go exploring there to get a base 60 power flying type move. Return is just going to be better if I'm holding the Silk Scarf. Rock Slide is the prize for defeating Brock, and Poison Jab is the prize for defeating Janine. So what makes most sense right now is to teach Return in the place of Ancient Power, and my set remains largely unchanged. A grass type move, which is terrible, Vine Whip, and then Return for primary damage. Still, this is going to be more than enough to defeat the gym leader that's coming up next. It's time for Chuck. His first Pokemon's Primeape. I'm not really scared of any of the moves that it has. It's probably just going to spam Double Team over and over again, so I'll take my time, set up Swords Dance, and then sweep his team. I figured that +4 would be more than enough, so with it I use Return, I miss once, then I hit the Primeape and it goes down to a single hit. I level up to 35 over a damage rounding threshold, Chuck sends in Poliwrath, and I go for Vine Whip. It's super effective in this case and more powerful than Return. It hits and his ace goes down right away, so that was another easy gym leader. Next I head over to the Lake of Rage, and on my way, I run into a wild Pokemon even though I have a Repel up. It turns out it's Entei. I have a fastball, so I throw it just in case I catch the legendary. Unfortunately, it breaks out and runs away. Okay, time for a summary. I finish the Red Gyarados, I complete the Rocket plotline, then I go up against Price. He's really easy for Tangrowth despite the type effectiveness. After that I stop by the department store, use the raffle desk to pick up a Cherry Berry, and then I head back to Olivine City to take on Jasmine. Before I fight her, I want to mention a couple options that Tangrowth has here. It could learn Focus Blast to have super effective damage against all of her Steel-type Pokemon. I could also potentially teach Rock Smash for this fight because just around the corner is the move deleter. It's not going to be dead weight for that long, and it's probably better than Vine Whip. Although I think Swords Dance is just so good that with my current set, I am going to be able to defeat her. The plan here is pretty simple. I didn't want to waste time with Sleep Powder against the Magnemite, although this is a potential option. Instead, I just wanted to try Swords Dance once and see if Return would one-shot. The answer is unfortunately no. Because of that, I tried to play the fight out with Paralysis going up to +4 attack and then one-shotting both of the Magnemites, but it turns out they can do a lot of damage to Tangrowth even though I resist their Thunderbolts. This is because Tangrowth has terrible special defense. I didn't expect this to be Tangrowth's weakness during the fight against Jasmine, but it ends up being my undoing. I'm paralyzed, low health, Steelix comes in, and that's that. The solution here is super simple. I don't need to upgrade my move pool. Just put the Magnemite to sleep, set up with Swords Dance twice, and then one-shot both of the electric types. After that, Steelix comes in, and I can use Vine Whip here. It does more than I was expecting. It gives me an easy 3-shot, despite the fact that her ace has a Citrus Berry. Okay, Petrol, is he going to be a problem? The answer is no. I can use Sleep here. I can also just set up Swords Dance once and then sweep his entire team. You know who is going to be a problem though? As I head downstairs, I fight this one Weezing guy. I figured I'll just clean him up before I come back here later. But no, this was an absolutely terrible idea. I thought I didn't need to use Sleep Powder to set up with Swords Dance. Instead, I just go for Return to 2-shot the Weezing. It uses Smokescreen, Tangrowth misses, and then Weezing is using special moves, which are doing massive damage. It also poisons Tangrowth, and I end up taking a reset here. I thought about blacking out, but I really didn't want to. It was going to take a bunch of time. I figured I could just finish off Petrol very quickly again and then skip this Weezing trainer. The rival in the underground is next. This is not the most ideal place to set up with Swords Dance because his initial Golbat has Confuse Ray, and it does confuse Tangrowth after using a single Air Cutter. Return's able to knock it out with +4, and he sends in his Quilava next. Yes, he hasn't evolved to Typhlosion here just like in Generation 2. This is because Quilava evolves at level 36, but his starter is only level 34 by this point in the game. This is one thing that makes the game slightly easier if you're going up against the Fire-type starter. Unfortunately, Tangrowth hits itself once. I tank damage from the Fire-type, although its only Fire-type move is Flame Wheel, which deals physical damage, so it doesn't do that much. Then I knock it out in one hit, finish off the Sneasel that follows. He sends in Haunter next. I was so scared here. Shadow Ball does a lot of damage, but then I put the Haunter to sleep. I can use Vine Whip to knock it out over 2 turns after that, and Magnemite is easy to clean up using Return. Tangrowth just barely squeezes out a win here. I take my revenge on the Weezing Grunt, this time playing with Sleep Powder first. Then, at the top of Radio Tower, I take on Executive Archer. His team is actually kind of scary for the first time. He has a Houndour, Coughing, and Houndoom. After playing a lot of Generation 2, I assumed the Houndour and the Houndoom would both be special attackers, and the Coughing would be a physical attacker, but it's actually reversed. The Houndour and the Houndoom only have physical moves with the exception of Smog, but that's basically not a move at all. Coughing, on the other hand, has Sludge. If the Houndoom had had a move like Flamethrower, this could have potentially been a difficult battle, because it is faster than Tangrowth, but with Fire Fang it's just not able to do enough damage. With the Rockets all defeated, I head down the tower and pick up Sunny Day on my way. It's key to remember what I said before. I don't want to teach this move too early because then I won't have access to it in the late game. This is the only location in Heart Gold where you can pick this up. The only other way to get this TM is with the Pokewalker, which I don't have access to in these solo challenges. So for now, my moveset is going to remain unchanged, and Vine Whip surprisingly is just still here. Yeah, I don't think there's a better option. Honestly, I could teach something like Sludge Bomb at this point in the game. It doesn't really make sense though. I would have to go out of my way to pick up that TM, which wastes frames and time. Then I would also have to waste more time just opening the menu and teaching it to my Pokemon. Sometimes in these challenges, the best thing to do to save time is to do nothing. So now, let's take on Clair. Things don't start well for Tangrowth. I miss a bunch of sleep powders trying to put the Gyarados to sleep, and it hits a bunch of Dragon Rages, bringing my health down to 29. Also, it woke up from the one sleep powder that did hit, so this ends up being a fast loss. In the next battle, things go better for me, but not that much better. Sleep powder is just not keeping the Gyarados asleep long enough, so I go all the way down to 29 hit points before knocking it out. But I'm faster than both of the Dragonairs, so they're not going to be an issue. The Pokemon I'm worried about, though, is Kingdra. It has Dragon Pulse, which is special and is going to do neutral damage. There's no way that Tangrowth survives this, right? Correct, it goes for Dragon Pulse, and that's that. What needs to happen here is I have to put the Gyarados to sleep, set up with Swords Dance without it waking up, and then I can knock it out and have green health for the remainder of the fight. This should allow me to survive the one hit from Kingdra, but in this case it goes for Smokescreen turn 1, and at only +3 attack due to Gyarados' Intimidate, I am not able to one-shot her ace. Okay, another change from the early generations of Pokemon. Hyper Beam is now special, which means it's quite scary for Tangrowth, although Kingdra does not do nearly as much damage as I was expecting with it, and from there I'm able to finish off her most powerful Pokemon. I clean up the final Dragonair, and with that all of the Johto gyms are finished. I grab some rare candies from around the map, and while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the Kimono girls. They've been a problem for Pokemon in the past when you have Swords Dance. You can't just set up once and then sweep through 5 Pokemon, you would have to set up individually. This means that Pokemon that aren't running setup moves tend to fare better in this small portion of the game. I was expecting Tangrowth to have no problems here because it does have Sleep Powder, which can solve some of the issues. And I was very wrong. So first of all, we need to talk about the evolutions as Pokemon. Each one of them represents one of the types that was introduced as a special typing in Generation 1. Water, Fire, Electric, Dark, Psychic, Grass, Ice, and then later on Fairy, which is sort of taking the place of the Dragon type evolution because the Dragon type was the only other special type in Generation 1. It feels to me that starting in Generation 6, Game Freak kind of split the Dragon type into 2 separate typings, the Mythical typing, the Fairy type, and then the Dragon type, which is literal dragons. Because of this fact, all of the evolutions are quite heavily special attackers. Even the first one, during the Kimono Girls, which is Umbreon, has higher special attack when compared with its physical attack, and it's going to be using special moves, Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball. Then we have Espeon, which is faster than Tangrowth and can do massive damage with Psychic. If I get by these two, then there's Flareon, which is super effective, and it Fire Blasts me and gives me my first reset. You can't just defeat these trainers, then black out and fight the last 2. You have to fight all 5 of them and defeat all 5 of them in sequence, without saving and without healing. I'm using the Quick Claw here because I want to move first against the Espeon. Sometimes though, I just get confused by the Umbreon and absolutely destroyed by it spamming Dark Pulse and Tangrowth hitting itself. Eventually, I just realized that I'm going to have to hit Sleep Powders, specifically against this Flareon. I'm not able to one-shot and I can't set up with Swords Dance like I mentioned before, so Return has to 2-hit. If I miss my Sleep Powder or the Flareon wakes up quickly, then this is going to be a loss. I kept failing over and over here until I finally recognized that this is just not going to happen at the current level. I really didn't want to use rare candies here. It feels like it's far too early into the playthrough. However, the frustration just built and built and built, and I reached my breaking point. I used the rare candies in order to defeat the Kimono Girls. Tangrowth is now level 55, and this is the saddest stat. The speed is 94, but Espeon's is 95, so even after all the candies, I am still moving second. Sunny Day also doesn't solve my problems here, because then I would have to set up against the Espeon and it would take at least 1 hit anyway. So in the end, it's back to the same scenario, using Sleep Powder against the Flareon or hoping that Return will do enough damage. Now, I did level up a lot, and this does give me enough to one-shot it, which greatly improves my odds. I finish off the Jolteon after that, move on to the Vaporeon. I was worried about Aurora Beam hitting me since it is special, but I do have Power Whip at this point. Finally, Vine Whip has been superseded. The only downside is the 85% accuracy, but I'm using Fissure these days, so this isn't that bad. It hits the Vaporeon right away, and of course one-shots. With the Kimono girls behind me, I have another special attacker to fight at the top of Tin Tower, or Bell Tower as it's known in Generation 4. I refuse to call it Bell Tower, it's still Tin Tower to me, I've played way too much Generation 2. Anyway, Ho-Oh's up here, I have to face it. I was really just praying that I was going to escape right away, unlike Licky Licky, and Tangrowth does. However, I was forgetting one thing. In Generation 4, Sacred Fire is actually a physical move, so Tangrowth probably would have stacked up pretty well against Ho-Oh there. Okay, in Victory Road, I'm going to pick up the TM for Earthquake. I'm mentioning this now because I'm not going to teach this move for a long time, and you're probably going to be wondering why. Doesn't it make sense to just have this so that you can knock out the Magneton? Also, I'm sure some of you at this point in the run are thinking, Scott, get rid of Sleep Powder. That move is not helping you at all. And yeah, I was thinking about this throughout the majority of this playthrough. There were so many moments where I just wanted to ditch this move and teach something else like Sunny Day. But every time I thought about it, I just wanted to keep it around because I know that there will be problems later into the playthrough, and this move does give me a potential solution against any possible enemy. So for now, I made the decision to keep it on my set. The rival before the league is next. He leads with a Sneasel. I thought this would mean the rest of the battle is going to be very easy since it tends to be a really bad lead. However, that isn't the case for Tangrowth. The reason is, the Sneasel likes to use Icy Wind, which drops my speed, and then I'm slower than the Typhlosion, which is later in the battle, so it can use Lava Plume and absolutely obliterate Tangrowth. If I want to avoid Icy Wind, then I can put the Sneasel to sleep, but if it wakes up while I'm setting up Swords Dance, then I can use Icy Wind, drop my speed, and I'm back in the position I was in before. I could have potentially tried to one-shot the Sneasel and then set up on the Golbat, but it can use Confuse Ray, so in the end I decided to go for the Sleep Powder strategy against the Sneasel, and after one quick loss, it does end up working out. I only set up to +2, I actually get a little bit risky here, put the Golbat to sleep, and then set up against it with one more Swords Dance going to +4. With my speed intact, I can move first against the Typhlosion, one-shot it, then use Power Whip to take out the Haunter, return for the Kadabra, and then back to Power Whip for the final Magneton. With the rival cleared, now it's time for Tangrowth to take on the Elite Four. Will is first, and I thought this wasn't going to be a problem because Tangrowth is faster than all of his Pokemon, the Ace Xatu by only a single point of speed. The problem is, I put the first Xatu to sleep and then set up with Swords Dance. However, the Xatu wakes up, uses Confuse Ray, Tangrowth then hits itself against the Jinx, gets put to sleep by Lovely Kiss, and then finished by Psychic. Not a great start to the Elite Four, but again, with Sleep Powder and Swords Dance, I'm gonna eventually be able to win, especially when I outspeed all of the enemy's Pokemon. So the second time around, I get set up, and then I sweep his team with only a single use of Swords Dance. The only Pokemon that survives a single hit is the Slowbro. It hangs on with a Sliver. Will uses a Full Restore, and I was expecting this to get annoying with him spamming multiple of these items. However, Tangrowth just gets a crit right away. Okay, Koga, I'm gonna take a risk here and set up with Swords Dance, hoping that Poison Jab doesn't poison, and it does right away, so I take a reset. Pretty annoying. Maybe I shouldn't be wasting turns using Sleep Powder against a Pokemon that has Insomnia. Power Whip can't do very much to Ariados, so the obvious choice here is set up with Swords Dance and then hopefully sweep Koga's entire team. I get to +2. From here, I can one-shot pretty much everything with the exception of the Fortress. It's so bulky, it takes multiple hits to knock out, but in the end, it's not a threat. Bruno, the first simple Elite Four member for Tangrowth. His Hitmontop is incompetent, so I can just set up with Swords Dance here as many times as I want and then sweep the remainder of his Pokemon. Power Whip being useful against the Onix. Okay, Karen. I want to mention something here, which is the fact that the Houndoom is faster than Tangrowth. And unlike Archer's Houndoom, Karen's Houndoom is a special attacker. It has Dark Pulse and Flamethrower. Her Umbreon, unlike in Generation 2, does not have Sand Attack. It's spamming Double Team, so I take my time getting set up to +6 with Swords Dance. I finish it off, one-shot the Murkrow, and then Houndoom comes in. Thing is, I have green health because the rest of the battle hasn't been difficult. So the Houndoom sees that it won't one-shot me with Flamethrower and instead picks Nasty Plot. Because of that, my return one-shots her ace, and from here things get easier, although they still are luck-based. The Gengar could have gone for Destiny Bond and then knocked out Tangrowth, but instead it just goes for Spite and Power Whip one-shots. Just before Lance, I want to remind you that his Dragonites have 107 speed, at least the two with Thunder Wave. I want to avoid this if possible, so I'm going to use 3 rare candies to boost Tangrowth up from 60 to 63. This gives it 109 speed, so now it's going to be faster than most of Lance's Pokemon. Gyarados is first. The strategy here is simple. Sleep Powder, then set up with Swords Dance. By the way, you might notice here that I didn't use an Elixir or an Ether. This was purely a mistake. I only have 4 uses of Return and 5 uses of Power Whip. Here's the thing, I can still win. If I use Power Whip to knock out the Gyarados, then I can use Return for the Charizard and all 3 Dragonites, leaving Power Whip for the Aerodactyl. It's the only Pokemon faster than Tangrowth. In this case it goes for Aerial Ace, doesn't do enough damage, and Power Whip one-shots. I clean up the final 2 Dragonites, and so Lance is defeated easily, at least the first time around. Moving on to Kanto, Erica ends up being really easy. You might expect Misty to also be easy, but she isn't. The reason is, her Starmie has Ice Beam, a special move. It's also a special attacker, and it does massive damage, but not more than half. And that's really good for me, because Power Whip misses here at the worst possible moment. So I get hit by another Ice Beam, taking Tangrowth down to red health before I finish off her ace. Luckily Quagsire is last, and it takes 4 times damage from Power Whip. That said, I miss right away and give it a chance to attack. It goes for Water Pulse, confusing Tangrowth. Luckily, it doesn't hit itself in confusion, and I do finish Misty. Lieutenant Surge. He's gonna be annoying because I'm refusing to teach Earthquake during this fight. I want to hold on to Power Whip at least for now. Because of that, he paralyzes me, and then I set up Swords Dance. From there, I sweep his team. He can't do very much damage to me. This is just a long and frustrating battle. Because I held on to Power Whip, Brock is trivial. Next, I make it to Blaine. He is kind of awful. Look at how much damage Overheat from Magcargo does. So that's what happens when Sleep Powder misses against his first Pokemon. I just lose. It's also worth noting that Tangrowth's speed stat here is optimally bad. It has 117 and his Magmar has 118. There's no way I'm gonna outspeed his Rapidash. What I need to have happen here is Sleep Powder to work first turn against the Magcargo. That'll allow me to set up with Swords Dance, and from there I should be able to sweep, but then I attack with Return and Flame Body activates, burning Tangrowth. Just perfect. But I did set up to +4, so hopefully I'll still have enough damage. And I leveled up right after the Magcargo, which gives me enough speed to move first against the Magmar consistently. So only the Rapidash is going to be able to attack. I take a little bit of burn damage, Rapidash goes for Overheat, Tangrowth doesn't survive. If I'm never going to move first against the Rapidash, and it's always seeing that Overheat does enough damage to KO me, then there is no way to win this battle other than moving first against Rapidash. And the only way I could see doing that right now with Tangrowth without just using a bunch of rare candies or grinding on inefficient trainers was to teach Sunny Day in the place of Power Whip. I have intentionally held off teaching this move for so long. And unfortunately for me, I think I should have searched for other solutions against Blaine. Teaching this move in the place of Power Whip is just not going to be the right choice, but I couldn't have taught it in the place of Sleep Powder since I need this move to set up against the Magcargo to ensure the one-shots on the Magmar and the Rapidash. Plus, you can't set up Sunny Day against fire types without taking massive damage in the process unless you can stop them from attacking, and that's what Sleep Powder is doing, and I need Swords Dance for damage as I've already mentioned. Plus, Return is my go-to move. I'm not going to make it through this fight spamming Power Whip. Thinking this was the only solution, I use it, and it does work out against Blaine in the very next battle, so at least I made it by here. However, I make it by in a way that's not ideal. Sunny Day wears off, so I'm not actually faster than the Rapidash. Tangrowth just survives the Overheat from full health at level 69. Nice. Actually, really not nice. I should have just won without teaching Sunny Day, but I saved after teaching the TM, so there is no way for me to revert the game's state at this point, even though that's what I really wanted to do as soon as I saw that damage range. This is how first playthroughs go. Sometimes I make little mistakes like this, I save when I shouldn't have saved, and because of that I get punished and then I have to make the best of a bad situation. So let's see what I have to deal with from here on out now that I'm locked into Sunny Day. Janine is luckily very easy, and then I fight Sabrina, who I put off as long as possible because she has fast special attackers. Okay, Blue is next, and this one's a little bit strange. I wasn't sure what the interaction between Trick Room, Chlorophyll, and Sunny Day would be. The obvious way this should play out is that the Sun triggers Chlorophyll, which improves Tangrowth's speed, and then Trick Room reverses the speed interactions, making Tangrowth slower. For that reason, I don't think it makes any sense setting up Sunny Day. After all, Tangrowth is already faster than all of Blue's Pokemon. The fact that he doesn't have an Alakazam in this game makes his average speed stat quite low, with the Arcanine and Pidgeot being tied as the fastest Pokemon on his team with only 118 speed. speed. I think the best solution for this fight is using Sleep Powder against the Executor, so once again, I am happy I kept this move. I can avoid its use of Hypnosis then, as well as its spamming Psychic, which is a powerful special move. Unfortunately, Sleep doesn't work out for me during the first fight, so it does end up finishing me. However, in the second battle, it does work. I'm able to set up to +4, and then move on to his second Pokemon, which ends up being Arcanine. Unfortunately here, when I go for Sleep Powder and miss, Arcanine switches me out, deleting all of my setup with Swords Dance. I had to get a bit risky from here, putting the Arcanine to sleep after switching back in, and then using Swords Dance to boost my attack again. I'm able to get to +4, knock out the Arcanine, and then sweep through a bunch of the other Pokemon on his team until Rhydon comes in. At only +3, because of Gyarados' Intimidate, I am not able to 2-shot, and it's going to be a 3-hit. I tried using Sleep Powder to put it to sleep so that it wasn't going to attack me because my health is very low. Unfortunately, this doesn't work because he saves it over and over again with full restores, and I end up taking a second loss to Blue as the result. In my third fight against him, everything just sort of works. I set up with Swords Dance all the way to +6. This ensures that I'm able to 2-shot the Rhydon, and he doesn't roar me out this time, so I don't waste additional frames. Rhydon goes down, leaving only Machamp, and I'm able to 1-shot, finishing off the final gym leader in the game. One small thing I've started to do here is going to Mount Silver next to pick up the rare candy here before going back and doing the league rematches. In so many of these challenges, Lance number 2 is the most difficult battle in the entire run. Having one more rare candy for him, as well as having the fly point for later on, is both convenient and strategically advantageous. But first, we need to get to Lance. And despite having Swords Dance, that's gonna prove more difficult than I was expecting. Will causes some problems. His Pokemon are faster this time around, and his Ace Xatu has 155 speed, meaning Tangrowth is never going to move first against it. I hit myself in confusion, and because of that, it finishes me with Psychic. Second time around though, I'm not confused, so I'm able to finish it off with a single hit from Return and move on to Koga. Here, I can put the Skuntank to sleep if I want to avoid Toxic, then set up with Swords Dance and sweep his team. This one is overall very simple. Crobat is faster and it does have Fly, but I can use Sunny Day earlier into the battle to ensure that I move first against his ace, or his previous ace. In this case, Swalot is his ace, and it's really not that good. I don't think it's ever caused significant problems. I clean up the Toxicroak, and then I head into Bruno's room. Now, I need to talk about my thought process here, so let's pause for one brief moment. Look at my current moveset: Return, Swords Dance, Sleep Powder, and Sunny Day. The only damage dealing move I have is a normal type move. That's a problem for Karen because she has a Spiritomb. I need a way to damage this ghost type Pokemon, but she also has a flying type, which is Honchkrow, so I need a way to be able to damage it as well. That eliminates Earthquake as a potential return substitute for the battle against her. I was also thinking about Bruno's Lucario. I would like to have return for the flying types and damage for the ghost type, so in the end, I decided to hold on to Sleep Powder and teach Earthquake in the place of Sunny Day. This is a disastrous mistake. Not because I kept Sleep Powder, I am gonna need that move for Lance, but because I didn't replace Return, which is what I should have done. I hope that all of you have already spotted which move I should have taught in its place. Now, Bruno, who's next, is really simple with my current set. Earthquake is definitely useful here. I one-shot all of his Pokemon after setting up with Swords Dance. But next is Karen, and she ends up being extremely difficult. Look at Houndoom. It has 143 speed, so it's much faster than Tangrowth, and even if I make it by the Weavile, which is hitting with super effective Ice-type moves, and I get set up, the Houndoom is just gonna finish me. What I was hoping for here was some luck with the Quick Claw to let me knock the Houndoom out, and I do get that in my third battle against her. I'm set up to +2, I move first against the Houndoom, one-shot it, and then Umbreon comes out. Here's the issue: I wasn't able to one-shot the Spiritomb using Earthquake when I'm only on +2 attack. Because of this, it's set up Curse, so I'm losing health every turn, which is really bad when the Umbreon also has Curse, which can improve its defense stat, allowing it to survive longer with Return, and then the status condition finishes Tangrowth. I tried 2 more times, but it's just not working, so in the end, I used some rare candies, bringing Tangrowth up from level 74 to 81 before trying Karen again. Right now, Tangrowth's speed stat is 139. It is 4 points lower than the Houndoom. I tried 4 times, all of them end in losses, so I decided to black out and train up a little bit more in order to get the outspeed against what was previously her ace. Before starting the league again, I head back to the Whirl Islands and pick up 1 additional rare candy. Then after crushing Will, Koga, and Bruno, I am level 83, so I can use 1 rare candy to go up to level 84 and secure the outspeed on the Houndoom. This makes the battle against Karen so much easier. I defeat her on my first attempt this time around. Two things worked in my favor here. I was able to get set up to +4 against the Weavile and then one-shot the Spiritomb, and now the Houndoom is always going to be a one-shot and it's never going to do damage. But next I have to take on Lance. And this is where the true pain of this run begins. Right away you should know why this is bad. Salamence is first, it has 187 speed, and it also knows Flamethrower. Plus, while it isn't a special attacker, its special attack stat is still quite high. Earthquake is absolutely useless for this fight, and Sunny Day has the potential to be useful, because let's go through all of Lance's other speed stats. Gyarados, 148. It is faster than Tangrowth currently. Garchomp, 155. The only Pokemon I outspeed right now is the Altaria. Charizard has 161 speed, and the Dragonite has 147. What this does mean is I could potentially train to a higher level and outspeed the Charizard with only the Salamence moving first, but I'll need to get to 162 speed, and Tangrowth right now is level 84. I have saved over all of my rare candies to this point in the run, so I'm gonna have to grind during the league if I want to level up more. Salamence with Flamethrower is able to do more than half to Tangrowth in a single hit, so what is the path to victory here? Well, at this level I could win with the Quick Claw activating over and over again. I could reset very quickly on the Salamence, waiting for the Quick Claw to activate and then Sleep Powder to work, putting it to sleep. Then I can set up with Swords Dance and hopefully make it through the rest of Lance's team. But Earthquake is deadweight, so I can replace this move anyway and give myself a slightly better chance of making it through his first Pokemon. I can teach Attract in Earthquake's place and then mess the Salamence up with this volatile status condition. So this has the potential to give me a victory, but of course it doesn't. I just reset over and over again. The Salamence is way too brutal to make it through without the Quick Claw activating. So in the end, I decide to black out and train during the league. This takes so much time. We are starting the training at 3 hours and 28 minutes, and I grind all the way to level 95 so that Tangrowth has 162 speed, ensuring that it moves first against Lance's Charizard. I have a total of 57 faults going into the battle against Lance again, and this isn't even the most difficult fight of the game. Red is coming up next, and his Pokemon are all higher levels, and they're all faster. What about his Charizard? I'm getting the feeling that this playthrough might actually be cursed, because I decided to give up Sunny Day. I think I needed that move for the final 2 battles. Well, need is not the correct word, at least against Lance, because I can win this with Sleep Powder, Attract, and Swords Dance on the Salamence. It's just kind of annoying. Eventually, I'm going to be able to put the Salamence to sleep, survive through its attacks, set up with Swords Dance, and then since I outspeed all of the remaining Pokemon on his team, if I can just knock out his first Pokemon, then I'll win. It takes me 3 resets before I finally get the luck I need. By the way, if you're noticing I'm using Attract before Sleep Powder, the reason is because the Salamence is holding a Lumberry. Attract makes things more safe while I'm trying to spam out Sleep Powder, putting the Salamence to sleep. This is just another hurdle that Tangrowth needs to overcome. In this case, I get hit by Flamethrower twice. Now, being level 95 has raised my defensive stats just enough that I can survive these 2 hits on red health. I get set up all the way to +5, and I decided this was enough. Return one-shot Salamence, and then all of his remaining Pokemon get swept through with single hits from return, even after the Gyarados triggers Intimidate and lowers my attack to +4. Next, it's time to prepare for Red. But here, I want to mention a problem. At the top of Mount Silver, there is Hail active, which means Blizzard always bypasses accuracy checks, and I have no way to remove this weather because I gave up Sunny Day and I can't get it back. This means that I will not be able to use Double Team in order to win, because Blizzard bypasses accuracy checks and it's super effective. His Pokemon are all going to go for it when Tangrowth is out because of its pitiful special defense, so I can't even resort to an evasion boosting move in order to win here with Tangrowth. This means it's pretty much pointless leveling up to 100 2 more levels. I'm going to have to find a way to win with my current set or some other moves. So what could have I done earlier in this playthrough in order to keep Sunny Day until the final battle? Well, the option is fairly simple. Against Karen, in order to hit her Spiritomb, I should have taught Rock Slide in the place of Return. If I had done that, then I could have used the Rock type move in order to sweep through her entire team and make it to Lance. By the way, in Generation 4, there are additional Return TMs available in the Celadon department store, so I could have just gone there and bought another copy in order to get the normal type move back for the final battles. I'm fairly frustrated that I didn't see this option first time around. Anyways, I'll know that in the future, for Pokemon that need the weather-inducing moves for late into the game, especially Chlorophyll users, I should be trying to solve Karen in a different way if I'm running Swords Dance and Sleep Powder together. This is a pretty niche situation. Maybe I'll never encounter something like this again. Okay, for now, let's climb up Mount Silver and face red and see how this battle goes. Pikachu is first. I resist Thunderbolt and Volt Tackle. However, Thunderbolt deals special damage, and it is doing way more than I was hoping to Tangrowth. Roughly 1/4 or 1/5. So I'm not going to get free setup here with Swords Dance. The problem still remains though. At level 98, my speed stat is 167. Since this is a first playthrough, I am always using hardy natures. Going for a speed boosting nature would help out so many things for Tangrowth. We could easily just drop special attack since I'm not using that stat throughout most of the playthrough outside of the early game. Although that would have made that section a little bit more annoying, but the late game is far worse than the early game was. I can't believe I'm saying that when I started this playthrough with Constrict. Coming back to the speed issue, the Charizard has 178 speed and the Blastoise has 177. Both of these Pokemon are going to be able to move first with super effective damage against Tangrowth. Now Flare Blitz is physical, but Air Slash is not, and that's what the Charizard is going for. It deals devastating damage and Tangrowth faints. If the leftovers aren't going to work, maybe I need the Quick Claw to move first against Charizard and Blastoise. But if I'm relying on this item for 2 Pokemon, it feels pretty bad. I really only like to solve a single Pokemon with this item since it activates fairly infrequently. After this second loss, I thought of a second strategy. What if I go back to the game corner and purchase myself another substitute TM? What I can do then is stall the Pikachu setting up substitute, taking my time because it can't break my subs with Thunderbolt. It's going to take sometimes 2 of these moves to do it, so that'll give me some time to set up Swords Dance, or other times it's just going to knock me out. I played really badly in this fight. I kept trying to make this set work, but Sleep Powder isn't really pulling its weight. I think it's going to be better to hold on to Attract. Luckily, I did not save after I taught Substitute. I have learned my lesson with Sunny Day. This allows me to teach Substitute in the place of Sleep Powder so that my set is all normal moves, Return, Swords Dance, Substitute, and Attract. Then I can use Attract to mess the Pikachu up. Substitute can now hold for multiple turns, and I can take my time setting up with Swords Dance. This doesn't always work because the only way I can heal is with leftovers. I have no move slot to teach Rest. I can't believe that. Although I kept trying against the Pikachu and this just isn't working, it is able to attack just enough and do just enough damage with Thunderbolt that Substitute isn't really working out here. I knock out the Pikachu, but that happened on the turn that it broke my Substitute, and then Charizard comes in and obliterates Tangrowth again. So maybe I do need Rest. I teach it in the place of Attract. This allows me to literally stall the Pikachu. I am just wasting all of its Thunderbolt PP until it starts using Volt Tackle, which is physical and will do less damage. It's really weird for that to be the interaction. Anyways, this takes forever, but it does end up working. I can get all the way to +6 attack, stall the Pikachu out, knock it out, have my Substitute in place, knock the Charizard out, and move on with the battle. I one-shot the Lapras, the Venusaur, and I would have against the Snorlax, but then I realized a problem. The Blastoise is faster than me and I don't have a substitute. If I one-shot the Snorlax, then the Blastoise is just going to finish the battle with a powerful special move. Wait, did I fail this playthrough? It is so rare for me to do a solo challenge and not be able to win. Up until now, it has only ever happened with gimmick Pokemon. I'm thinking like Ditto and Shedinja. By the way, there is a better strategy for Shedinja, which will allow it to beat the game in Pokemon Emerald. I haven't talked about it in videos outside of live streams on my channel, but at some point in the future, hopefully I'll be able to show that to all of you. Okay, maybe there is a way to win against the Snorlax. If I spam Substitute and it spams Blizzard, it will only ever attack me 5 times. Potentially, I can use Substitute in combination with Rest and the leftovers to heal just enough to survive all of its Blizzards, stalling the Snorlax out effectively, forcing it to use its other moves, at which point Rest will be more effective, I can heal to full, and potentially survive a hit from Blastoise or set up Substitute, have it survive a Snorlax hit, and then finish red. The problem is, I just barely can't stall the Snorlax because look at how much damage Blizzard does when I don't have a substitute in place. With 5 hits, it is just barely able to finish Tangrowth before I wake up from Rest. I tried this several times with the current strategy. There is the potential to win here with a Quick Claw. If I equip the Quick Claw and then it activates against Charizard, I can one-shot, and and then have my substitute in place for the final Blastoise? That's gonna be fairly unlikely though, and I think there is one better option. If I go back to the move reminder in Blackthorn City, I can relearn Ancient Power in the place of Substitute. Here's how this has to work. Against Pikachu on the first turn, I need to Omni Boost. If I do, it will raise Tangrowth's speed stat by 1 stage, ensuring that I outspeed all of the remaining Pokemon on Lance's team. This strategy can also work earlier in the playthrough if you don't want to rely on the Quick Claw or level up for Lance, and maybe that was the best and fastest strategy back there. In the end, I took the slow path and leveled all the way to 98. And really this is why, because Ancient Power is fundamentally so inconsistent. And if I don't get the Omni Boost on turn 1, I will not have enough time to set up with Swords Dance because of how much damage Thunderbolt is dealing on every turn. So I can just reset right away, and these come very fast. Eventually, I get the Omni Boost. The special defense bonus here is actually very helpful, giving me time to use rest and heal up on the Pikachu. I have to stall it because it keeps critting over and over and over again. I wanted to play as safely as possible. I am so done with this run. In the end, I pull through, knock out the Pikachu, and now with enough speed, I can sweep through the remaining Pokemon on Red's team. I make it to the Blastoise, hit with Return, and his final Pokemon faints. After all of that, Tangrowth has finished the game. It clocks in with a first playthrough time of 4 hours, 22 minutes, and 35 seconds. It had a total of 78 faults, consisting of 71 resets and 7 blackouts. It finished the game at level 98 with a game time of 11 hours and 42 minutes. Okay, so this playthrough was not good, even though Tangrowth got Swords Dance. I definitely made lots of small mistakes along the way, but overall I think my play was quite good. I knew that I needed to be a physical attacker. Really the only major mistake was not saving Sunny Day until the latest stages of the game. Teaching it for Blaine was objectively the wrong choice, and saving after teaching it before Blaine was an absolute blunder. Still though, I think my play is getting better in Heart Gold little by little. I'm learning a lot of the niche things about this game, and overall, I have really learned that I need to respect Lance number 2. He is so difficult, especially with Pokemon with low speed stats. I have played a few of them now, like Ursaring for example, which really struggled with speed against Red. Abilities like Chlorophyll or Quick Feet that boost speed are going to be critical in these first playthroughs where I can't rely on natures. I also think that the Quick Claw might be one of the best items in this game. I'm going to play some other slow Pokemon very soon, like Rhyperior for example, which I assume is going to be dreadful in this game. Maybe I'm wrong though, and the rock type will prove to be quite effective. Nah, it has to be bad, right? It's going to be somewhere near the bottom of the tier list alongside another rock type like Sudowoodo. And Tangrowth is also going to be down here with a time over 4 hours. Although it did not get the worst placement in the tier list yet, so it squeezes in between Typhlosion and Sudowoodo, taking the second last spot. And I think this performance proves to me that even if you get access to Swords Dance in Goldenrod City, it doesn't make Pokemon Heart Gold an easy game to solo run. And I also think this run taught me one other thing, and that is how important special defense is, especially at the end of the game against Red. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, it means the world to me. Thank you so much. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.